Hi everyone, and welcome back to English for You. I am Pat.
I'm Mike.
And we're on day 2 of our TOEIC article. Yesterday we read that Royal Phones was launching a new product, and we were at the launch event where the representative was telling us about, this new big screen on this Ultra Pro 101. This screen is sharper, it's brighter, it's got these lifelike colors. But that wasn't what the reporters were interested in.
That's right. The company wanted to present their new phone and make people all excited about it, hopefully get a lot of people ready to buy it. But a reporter who works for maybe a newspaper or a website or something had some quite difficult questions about the camera. The reporter first asked if the new phone on the camera is the same phone as the older or the previous model. So basically, did you launch this whole new phone but have some of the same old things in the phone like the camera? Is this true?
Well, the representative said yes, it is true, but the follow-up question was trickier. The reporter asked if the phones had switched to a different manufacturer that uses cheaper parts. That was the rumor, that was the story, that they'd gone to a new factory to make the camera, and therefore they'd save money and the camera might not be as good because it was made with cheaper stuff. Is this true?
That's right. And the representative said, yes, that is true. It's the same camera, but a different company is making it. And so that's maybe not something people who might want to buy the phone are excited to hear. Okay. And especially if they're paying more for this new phone. And then the reporter really focused on this new manufacturer of the camera and asked if they made this change to cut costs because this new manufacturer is making this old camera and a much cheaper version of this old camera too. That's a pretty tricky question. It was such a tricky or difficult question that the company representative said, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. I'll get in trouble with my bosses or something like that. I can't give out. That's kind of a bit too secret. But I guess as the reporter, as someone watching this, I would think that that means yes, they did change manufacturers and the manufacturer is using cheaper parts. Again, not good news for people who are thinking, a new phone, new camera, it's going to be more expensive, but it'll be better. Maybe not.
Maybe not, but Royal Phones is now going to issue a written statement to talk about these rumors and set the record straight. Let's read through it right now.
Reading. Assuring the public about the quality of a product. We are aware of a rumor that has been circulating about the camera in the new Ultra Pro 101 smartphone. In order to address this rumor, we would like to make the following declaration. The Ultra Pro 101's camera is built to the same specifications as are found in the previous model. However, Royal Phones will be using a new manufacturer to make the camera. We are not able to mention the exact reason for this change. We would like to stress, though, that it is not a measure to cut costs. We would like to assure our customers that all our components will continue to match our high standards. As a result, the performance of the camera will remain unchanged. We would like to state that our new camera manufacturer has decades of experience with making high-quality cameras. At Royal Phones, we insist on providing the best service in the industry. Please direct any further questions to our press team.
All right, so yesterday's unit was all about the press conference. We were reading a dialogue between the reporter and the company representative. And I guess the questions the reporter asked made the company a little nervous about these rumors about the new cameras. So they've released this press statement. It's basically a letter to the press, to customers that they'll put out there in public for people to read. And get more information. This is basically their side of this whole story about the cheaper camera rumor. And it says, we are aware, we being Royal Phones, we are aware of a rumor that has been circulating about the camera in the new Ultra Pro 101 smartphone. Well, yeah, they're aware of this rumor because the reporter the other day, maybe yesterday, asked them some pretty tough questions about this camera. If something's circulating, it's going around. News circulates, rumors circulate. Did you hear this? And you hear it, and then you tell someone and they tell someone. We can talk about other things that actually do circulate. One of the most common things we might think of is your blood. Your blood circulates around your body. It goes into your heart pumps it, it travels around your body, and then eventually it comes back. It comes in a circle. Traffic might also circulate around the city. People go to work in the morning, come back in the afternoon. It's kind of like moving in a circle, or it's going around and around, going different places, but eventually coming back. So they've heard this story. The story's been out there. It's been circulating. People have been whispering and passing on this rumor, these stories about this phone.
So what's next? We see in the article that in order to address this rumor, we would like to make the following declaration. So when there's a rumor, if there's all these stories, you want to tell the truth and just kind of clear things up. Make sure everybody knows what is your side of the story. And that's what to address means in this case. It's not talking about where somebody lives. To address something as a verb basically means to say, we're going to deal with this rumor. We're going to acknowledge its existence and then explain what is really going on, and therefore, hopefully, make the rumor go away. So they're either going to completely confirm it or completely deny it. Either way, they'll give what they say are the facts. Here's another example. The school library bought some new books to address the needs of its students. So that, again, it's dealing with the needs, meeting the needs, sorting this thing out by doing something.
That's right. So they're going to have to talk about this rumor. They're going to have to address it. The opposite of address the rumor might be ignore the rumor. We're not going to talk about it. We're going to pretend it never happened. But they can't really do that. That's the thing about rumors. Sometimes they need to be addressed. So they say, in order to address this rumor, we would like to make the following declaration. So we've heard the stories. This is what we're going to say. This is our declaration. And when we talk about the following something, this is the one that is coming up right now, the one that is coming up right next. For example, I'd like to book a hotel room for the following dates: July 17th, August 14th, and September 11th. So I'm about to tell you some dates, the following dates, the ones that come up right now. And what's coming up right now? A declaration.
Exactly. And a declaration is an official statement. The verb form is to declare, which is to sort of make that the action of making the statement, whereas the declaration is a statement itself. And it's the sort of thing that could be taken as legal evidence. If someone says, well, if this is your official communication and we find out there's a lie in it, then that maybe means you're responsible because you've made it an official thing. This isn't just people talking. This is the statement. It is on the record.
All right, so this is their declaration. We might also call this a press statement or something like that. This is an official word. This is an official announcement from the company. And what does it say? Well, it says the Ultra Pro 101's camera is built to the same specifications as are found in the previous model. All right, so they're not saying it was made by the same company. We know it's been made by a different company. But they are saying that it was built to the same specifications. Basically, it is the same camera. Even if it comes from a different place, it works the same, it has the same lenses, or it can, take pictures with the same quality. All of that stuff is the same. So that the facts about the camera, the way it performs, is going to be exactly the same, or the same specifications as are found in the previous model. So basically, if you bought the old model, the camera in the new model will be basically the same, even though it might come from a different place.
And they talk about the different place in the next part, which says, however, Royal Phones will be using a new manufacturer to make the camera. So we know that from yesterday in the press conference. And we add here, and this is an interesting one, we are not able to mention the exact reason for this change. So in the same way as yesterday, they're not saying why they made the change. They're not saying we made it to make it cheaper. They're not saying we did it to make it better. Now, what they are not able to, that kind of legal language makes me wonder if it's some kind of contract thing. Maybe it's in the contract that they signed that they are not allowed to mention it. It was part of the agreement. Maybe they had a dispute, a disagreement with the old manufacturer, and as part of that, they're not allowed to talk about what happened, why it happened, and why the change is being made. So here they're not just saying, oh, I'm afraid I can't answer that, my boss will get angry, because this is coming from the official company. It's essentially coming from the boss, and they're saying maybe there are legal reasons, there are other reasons why we can't tell the public.
And of course, that may all be true, but it will also lead to many other questions. A lot of people will wonder and say, well, why are you not able to tell us this information? So that's an interesting way of addressing this rumor. But then they go on in the declaration to say, we would like to stress, though, that it is not a measure to cut costs. That was what the reporter actually asked about. Did you change camera manufacturers to make the phone more cheaply, to save money on the phone? And they're saying basically, no, we would like to stress this. We like to really point out, really bring your attention to the fact that it is not a measure to cut costs. So maybe there was just a disagreement between the phone company and the old camera maker. Who knows what it is, but they're saying, don't worry, it's not because the new camera is much cheaper. They really want to stress this fact or this information. When you stress something, you point out that it's really important. You bring extra attention to that. You really want people to notice that, remember that, don't forget that, don't ignore that. You really want to stress it. For example, the teacher stressed that anyone caught cheating on the exam would get a 0 and fail the course. Maybe the teacher said this 2 or 3 times, made sure all the students were looking at the teacher, listening very carefully, because the teacher really wants people to pay attention to this information.
And what they're saying that this is not a cost-cutting measure. A measure it means a step or an action, something that people do to make something happen, to ensure that something does or doesn't take place. So if you want to make something happen, you have to take measures to make sure it does happen. You can't just wait and hope. So if you're studying, you want to get a good grade, take measures to make sure you get a good grade. Study. Don't just go, oh, I really hope I get a good grade this time, because that likely won't work. You actually have to take action. Here's another example. The zoo workers took several measures to make sure that the tigers would never be able to escape again. So they escaped before, so now we're going to actually do some stuff like lock the cage to make sure they don't get out a second time.
Those would be some good measures to take. I think the zoo visitors would feel much better if they took some better safety measures in that way. And then the statement goes on to say, we would like to assure our customers that all our components will continue to match our high standards. Again, this is probably something they're also trying to stress They're assuring their customers. When you assure someone, you really make them feel comfortable and confident. You're kind of promising them. You're making them have no questions, no worries, no like, yeah, but no. Listen to me, don't worry, everything's fine. Our components, the parts of the camera will be very good. They will have very high standards. Please feel comfortable about that, people who want to buy the camera.
Yep, and they're saying the components will match our high standards. The components will be as good as they were before. Now, when we talk about components, we're talking about the individual parts of a larger machine. So with a camera, the components are going to be the battery, the phone. So it's the cameras in the phone, the battery in the phone, the screen on the phone, the processor that's in the phone. They are all components. If you're talking about an organization, the components could be the individual teams, groups, or departments within that greater organization. It's a part that goes into a whole.
And so then we read, as a result, the performance of the camera will remain unchanged. So the components in the camera will be just as well made. We're not switching out cheap plastic components for the more expensive metal components in the old camera. No, they're all the same. So the performance of the camera will remain unchanged. As a result of changing manufacturers, the camera will basically be the same, will remain unchanged. If something's unchanged, it's the same. And when we use the phrase as a result, so because of this is the result of some action or something that we did before.
The company then adds, we would like to state that our new camera manufacturer has decades of experience with making high quality cameras. So they're saying, look, we moved to this new company, but the new company's really good. They've got a great reputation. They've been making great cameras for a long time, for decades, in fact. A decade is a period of 10 years. It could be any 10 years. For example, I moved to Taiwan in 2008, so I've been here over a decade. We can also use decades to talk about specific periods, usually the start of a 10-year period from the 00 all the way to the 19. So the 1990s were a decade from 1990 to 1999. The 80s were from 1980 to 1989. So we often think of that as a decade, that particular specific period, but it can just mean any 10-year period. So we could say, Brad is really cheap. He hasn't bought a new pair of shoes in over a decade. So 10 years, no new shoes, which could mean he bought a very good pair of shoes 10 years ago.
Or he just doesn't mind the smell of his 11-year-old shoes. We're not sure about that. And so this camera manufacturer has decades, plural, of experience. That tells us they've been making cameras for 20, 30, 40 years. Basically, a really long time. They're good at making cameras. And then the statement goes on to say, at Royal Phones, we insist on providing the best service in the industry. Again, another statement to basically assure customers that as a camera company or as a phone company, you can trust them. They insist, they're very focused, and they basically have to make the best phones and provide the best service in the industry. This is a promise they make to themselves and to you, the public, who might want to buy their phones.
So the statement then ends by saying, please direct any further questions to our press team. So they're kind of saying here, like, stop asking our employees questions. Don't send emails and, don't ask for interviews. Go to the press team, okay? We'll talk about exactly who they are in a moment, but first we'll look at the verb direct. So we often think of direct as in tell somebody where to go. So if you're asking on the street, please direct me to the post office, you're saying, how do I get there? So by saying direct further questions, we're telling people where they want the questions to go. Ask the press team, in other words. direct your questions there, put them in that direction. Don't ask us, ask the guys whose job it is to answer them. Here's another example. At the end of the game, the guards directed the audience towards the exit. They're saying, please go that way. The game's over. Everybody go over there through those doors.
And if we're talking about questions, well, directing questions is basically asking questions. So if you want to ask questions, either by talking to someone or by writing them an email, send those emails or ask those questions to the press team, not to the CEO, not to the boss of the company, but to the press team, the people who work for the company whose job it is to answer questions from the press, from the media, from reporters and things like that. So the press team would probably be a fairly small group of people who work for the company, maybe 10 or 15 people. You'd have a press director, an assistant, people like that. And basically their job is to have relationships and answer questions with reporters to get the company's side of the story or the company's information out to people in the media, out to reporters and people like that.
Yeah, and they're often called PR or public relations, and it's their job to communicate with the public, to kind of be that official front for whatever else is going on. So that is the end of their statement. I think it doesn't quite answer all the questions, and it probably would depend on who you were and how you felt as to whether you would want to know more or just be satisfied with their answer. And we're going to discuss something like that in just a moment in today's For You Chat question.
For You Chat.
So our question is kind of related to what's just happened. Imagine your favorite company starts to use cheaper parts to make its products. Would you still buy them? And as always, explain your answer. Don't just give us a yes or no. Put some information, some reasons behind it.
Interesting. So it might be a company whose computers you buy, or you buy their phones, or maybe even their running shoes or something like that. But you hear that they're using cheaper parts. I don't know. This is part of the reason I don't buy a lot of these products right when they come out, because this does happen. So I would say yes, but I would also say that I will wait to hear what other people think, to hear what other people experience. I remember a few years ago when Apple released a new iPhone, it was much thinner, and a few months after it came out, a lot of people had reports or stories that it was breaking in their pocket. They would sit down and bend the phone. I don't know if they were using cheaper parts, but certainly different parts, and I was glad I didn't buy that new phone. So they fixed it, they made it better, and so then I bought it much later, but maybe not at first, especially if I hear they're making cheaper parts. I don't want to waste my money.
Well, it's interesting you bring up money, because if they're making the products with cheaper parts, does that mean you can buy them at a cheaper price? In which case, I would still consider it. If I can get something that still works reasonably well for less money, I would definitely, like Mike, check the reviews, check to see what people are doing. But there's nothing wrong with paying a bit less money if you still end up with a decent product. Sometimes that's the way you've got to do things. If you're budgeting or if you want to save a bit here and there, you just go, well, all right, maybe I can't afford the best phone, but I can afford this cheaper phone and it's still going to do the job. So it depends what the company's pricing strategy is, as well as what people are saying. But yeah, the best thing to do is probably wait a bit and see what the reports say. See those videos as people unbox the phones, test them out, say good things, say bad things, and so on. But that's all the time we've got for today. Thanks for watching, everybody. For English for You, I'm Pat.
And I'm Mike.
And we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Vocabulary Review.
Address. The number of homeless people is increasing. Therefore, the president created more jobs to address the problem. Following. Please read the following instructions before you use your new TV. Stress. Doctors stress the importance of eating enough fruits and vegetables to maintain a healthy body. Measure. Measures were taken to stop water levels that were rising by building a wall around the river. Decade. Sue decided to celebrate because her company had just completed its first decade in business. Direct. The police officer looked at the lost couple's map and directed them to the train station.
智慧小补帖
Circulate. Declaration. Assure. Component.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net